Welcome to Bristol Bay Native Corporation's podcast series, Mug Up with BBNC. Mug Up is a term commonly used in the Bristol Bay region, specifically in the fishing community. It refers to getting together with friends and family for a casual gathering over a warm cup of coffee or tea. It's all about sharing stories, experiences, and connecting with one another. In this podcast, hosted by BBNC's communications team, you'll hear from BBNC employees, community leaders, and passionate individuals who are engaged in BBNC's mission of enriching our Native way of life. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome back to Mug Up with BBNC. You have Carmel and Kayla here with BBNC, and we're excited to be joined by Lilani Dunn from the Bristol Bay Regional Seafood Development Association, also known as BBRSDA. Lilani is the Executive Director. Hey, Lilani, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well. How are you guys?
Good.
Doing good. Happy to have you on.
Yep, I've got my coffee and ready to go.
Awesome. Cool. Well, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Lilani?
Sure. Yeah. So I joined the BBRSDA in March 2020 as the marketing director. I had previous experience with the Alaska Seafood Marketing Institute, and then also heading the marketing and communications for Orca Bay, which is a Seattle-based seafood company. As you can imagine, it was March 2020, so it's really an interesting time for everyone. And since then, in February, I changed roles and became the executive director.
Very awesome. I was super excited to see that announcement when BBRSDA made it earlier this year.
Yeah, thank you.
Lilani, can you tell us a little bit about BBRSDA? Like, what do you guys do?
Sure. Aside from being a really long acronym, we are one of two of the RSDAs in Alaska. The other one is Copper River Prince William Sound, which is an even longer acronym, if you can believe it. But the RSDAs, we work regionally, which is different from ASME. ASME is a state entity, and they can't promote any one region or species. So for the BBRSDA, we are funded by our fleet, and we are the only fisherman-directed entity marketing Bristol Bay sockeye salmon. And this is really important for other partners in the supply chain, whether we're talking about processors or retailers, to have many other products and seafood sources. The fishermen, they rely solely on the market success of our Bristol Bay sockeye salmon. And in addition to marketing efforts and increasing the value of sockeye salmon, we also have sustainability and quality programs. Sustainability is anywhere from our fight against pebble mine, which I know you all know very well as doing any research projects and funding. Quality, of course, is important because that is what people are looking for in the market. And so we work on the harvesting point of it, but we also follow along the supply chain all the way up to how the sockeye is presented at retail stores and in restaurants. We also have an outreach program that's geared directly towards the fishermen, and that program can range from RSW apprentice programs to working with AMC and doing safety drill instructor classes, etc.
Man, you guys do quite a bit.
I was just thinking that. I hope our podcast listeners are also learning a lot, because I didn't know that you guys did all that. That's really cool.
Yeah, and it does range year to year for sure, depending on one, how the harvest goes, as well as what the needs are, not only in the market, but what our fishermen members need.
Definitely. You mentioned it a little bit, but is there anything else you want to add about how it benefits the fishing industry in Bristol Bay?
We benefit the fishing industry by putting Bristol Bay sockeye salmon on the map. More and more we keep learning different ways that consumer habits are changing. We have multiple generations of consumers. They all make their purchasing decisions based on various resources. We've seen social media really pick up recently, and things go viral now. People are more plugged in, and one of the best differentiators of our salmon is the place, Bristol Bay, as well as the people of Bristol Bay. And that's really going to benefit not just the sockeye salmon, but the fishery in itself as well.
So, I mean, you mentioned so many different projects that BBRSDA is doing. Do you have a favorite?
My favorite is right now we're doing a campaign, which is Bristol Bay Families to Yours. And I really love this campaign because it spans our different programs. It's for consumer education, for them to get to know Bristol Bay as well as the families of Bristol Bay.
Oh,
but it's also tied, and it's tied in to the delicious and nutritious sockeye salmon, the product. But we are featuring a lot of fishing families as well. And it's been really fun to create the content for it. And it's been a learning opportunity for myself. And I know for some of our team that have been working on it. And I know I might have mentioned this, but it is truly one of the biggest differentiators when customers are going to a seafood department at their local retail store and looking at what the different options are, and just knowing the people and the families that bring this salmon to their markets is a lot more interesting than other seafood that they're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys do a really good job marketing Bristol Bay seafood and the storytelling. I know I mentioned this to you before just in our work, but I love BBRSDA's marketing efforts. I love the brand and everything you guys are doing on social. It's very captivating and really special.
Thanks. We try to keep it as genuine and authentic, but as well as eye-catching.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge feedback. Thanks.
Yeah. I think a lot of our listeners have ties to Bristol Bay. They know why Bristol Bay is special to them. What would you say makes Bristol Bay special and unique in the seafood industry?
Yeah, you just reminded me of how much better your audience probably knows Bristol Bay than even myself. Our job is to also bring that to the rest of North America and most recently the world. And what's super unique and important, one, it's kind of our big headliner when we open any conversation, is that it's the largest wild salmon fishery in the world. Mm-hmm. And that's usually enough to stop anyone and continue conversation with us. Then we're able to dive deeper. There's just so many layers that I have yet to discover myself. But even in just the last 5 years or upcoming to 5 years, there's the culture, the traditions, the sheer number, not of just fish, but people who go in to make the commercial fishing happen. And even more important, the people who stay year round. I mean, that's you, Carmel, and that is super intriguing. And then you've got the ecosystems and the fact that it stays sustainable and there aren't any hatcheries used, and you've got the science behind it. That's captivating, and all the different conversations we have can go down any one of those rabbit holes. And there's just so many unique aspects that will resonate with any one individual that we're speaking to.
Yeah, agreed. Do you think there are any misconceptions people have about the commercial fishing industry?
I do. In the last handful of years, there have been films that have inaccurately depicted the commercial fishing industry. Words that kind of jump out at me are overfishing, bycatch, unsustainable practices, etc. And we're lucky, and what makes our job pretty easy is that Bristol Bay is not in offense of any of those things. And so when those misconceptions are brought up in conversation, we get excited because we don't have that problem. And so we get to tell that story of Bristol Bay and how our commercial fishing happens and how it's different from things they might have watched or read or seen on social media.
So how does BBRSDA address those? Do you have like marketing efforts on those inaccuracies that you mentioned?
We state positive with our messaging. If they either follow us on social or go to our website, we talk about all the strengths of our fishery, our sustainability practices. For example, if there's a film or something on social media that just went viral, then we face that head on. We don't really lead with, hey, we don't overfish or we don't have bycatch issues, but we speak mostly to the strengths of our sustainability and fishing practices. And only when we are faced with these misconceptions directly do we address them.
So you went commercial fishing for the first time this summer. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was so amazing. I was really excited when the opportunity presented itself. The board felt it was important for me to experience it firsthand. And I mentioned I've been in the Alaska seafood industry since 2011, so we're coming up on 14 years, and I've never commercial fished. And it exceeded all expectations. I was very nervous at first, but I fished Free Week and it was very nice weather.
Well, that's good.
That's nice.
I know. A very accommodating crew. And our board president, Eric Sabo, was the captain. It was on the Insanity, and it's a very nice and comfortable boat. So I do realize that my first-hand experience is not typical of what an entire season would look like, but it still was amazing to be out there. I came back so excited and motivated and inspired and had just one more layer. I mentioned layers before, but it is one more layer of understanding the bay and what all goes into fishing.
That's so awesome. I love that your board recognized how important of an experience that would be for you, like leading BBRSDA, you know?
Yeah. First, I raised an eyebrow like, oh, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And that was in February. And as the summer approached, it became very real. Like, here's a list of things you should pack. And here's the website on where to get a crew permit. And I was like, oh, okay, yep, we're doing this. Let's do it.
Wow. So where were you? Where'd you fly into and how'd all that go?
It was fun. I flew into Pilot Point.
Okay.
And one of our team has a fish camp there. And so she picked me up and brought me to her fish camp. And I got to visit that, which was really cool in itself. I thought to myself, like, I could sit and fish here, but they skiffed me out on a boat to the Insanity, which was anchored waiting for me. And then they quite literally plucked me off the skiff and lifted me on to the boat. And then we were in Ugashik.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I have also never commercial fished, although my family does. So can you give us and our followers like an example of what your first day was like?
Yeah, so they brought me onto the boat, showed me where my bunk was, and then the next thing you knew, we were off, and Eric was kind enough to try to teach me where they would typically go and navigate, and showed me what they did last year and tried to teach me how the tides work. I think I know enough not to get stranded somewhere.
Yeah.
Still would not be able to hop on a vessel and fish, but he was very good at explaining why they go and when they go. And then they just set the net, and we watched, and they were trying to get me to see how fish hit the net. And now, after my experience, I do see what it looked like. And then you bring it in, and then you start picking. And I was like a deer in headlights and kind of looked around at the other crew members, followed suit, and they helped me a lot along the way. And I had no idea how slippery sockeye are when you're picking the net. And yeah, it was quite fun. And so we did that, rinse and repeat. And I suppose since it was Free Week, we could have gone round the clock, but I'm very grateful we didn't on day one. So they definitely eased me in.
Yeah.
What surprised you most about your experience?
I was most surprised by the number of seals.
Oh.
Yeah. I was very excited to see the first one. And by the end of my time on the boat, I was not as excited.
Wait, are the seals trying to eat the salmon?
That is exactly what they're doing. And so you can get very excited because you're seeing fish hit. And then when you bring it in, you have noticed that you fed a family of seals.
Oh, no.
Because like half of the fish will still be in there or what?
Right.
Whoa.
Either partial or just guts.
Wow.
Or a fin.
Oh, that's such a bummer.
It is exactly a bummer. That's exactly what it is.
Smart animals.
Yeah, it's like a buffet for them.
The exact verbiage that was used.
Wow.
It is a buffet line for seals.
When you're bringing in the salmon and a family of seals came in, do you just take the rest of the salmon, just throw it in the water?
Do you mean while you're picking or like the partially eaten ones?
Like the partially eaten ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the partially eaten ones are insult to injury because talking to the seals, just eat the whole thing then.
Yeah. Totally. That's so interesting. What was your favorite part about your experience?
My favorite part, I really enjoyed the company that was on the Insanity. Very, very patient captain that dealt with a very unexperienced crew member and myself, but also the two crew members, CJ and Kyler, who were willing to let me get in their way or slow them down is what I'm going to guess I did. And it was really cool. Eric was nice enough to let me drive the boat. I don't think that's common practice, but if he saw how I drove on the roads, he would have
thought differently.
Taken pause there. But it was very cool to just, again, have that firsthand experience, driving the boat, picking the net, controlling the reel, throwing the buoy, and what was really special was doing a solstice dinner together with some of the sockeye that we caught and having it on the boat.
Oh, yum.
As a little family.
Cute. Love that.
Okay, I have a few questions because I've never been commercial fishing. These may sound dumb, but there's a bathroom on the boat, I'm assuming.
There was a bathroom on this boat, and they were kind enough to allow me to use it personally. The rest of them did a more traditional.
Okay, so out of like the commercial fishing boats, do they normally not have a bathroom?
That's going to depend. So I would say some of the newer boats will have a bathroom and some don't. Some have a bucket. Yeah.
And you said how many people were on this boat? 4, 5?
There are 4 of us total.
Okay. So is there like 2 bunk beds?
There were 4 bunks.
Okay, so 4 beds.
4 beds,
okay.
Yes. Correct.
Do you guys have like a refrigerator? Like how do you make your food while you're on there?
Yeah, so we had a fridge, a stove, lots of nooks and crannies to keep dry goods. There was even a freezer to keep proteins frozen as well, or frozen produce. It's very efficient in space. There isn't any nook or cranny, like I mentioned, that doesn't have a drawer or a cabinet or some use. And most importantly, there was a coffee machine.
Oh, yeah.
I could not imagine.
Yeah, because how long were your days?
Our days were pretty long. The first day, like I mentioned, they eased me in, but due to tide and, of course, the daylight and free week, you could fish for as long as you want. So there was one night, I think we probably went, bedtime was set maybe around 11 or so, and we woke up at 4 to fish early.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
and that cup of coffee was very crucial for my function and safety.
I wonder what the
and everyone else's safety around me.
I wonder what the average coffee consumption is in Bristol Bay in the summer.
Yeah, that'd be a good.
Those are the types of stats I really want to dive into. I actually did an interesting stat asking, just anecdotally, some of our board members, former board members, and committee members about how much do they spend at Costco.
Oh yeah, definitely.
To ship up their supplies, and it ranged anywhere between $1,500 up to $5,000.
Yeah, depending on how bougie you want to be.
Exactly. How well do you want to eat?
Yeah.
And how much?
Yep.
Yeah.
I have some commercial fishing friends, that I follow on Instagram, and I will say that some of their boat meals look pretty darn good.
Yeah, you can. And if depending, so I mentioned that it was free week, and so we could kind of choose when to fish. But otherwise, when it's not free week, it's depicted by openers, and that's Fish and Game. And if there's not an opener, you might have more time, so you could probably get pretty creative. I know that the guys on Insanity tested out a salmon pie recipe.
Ooh.
Yeah, while they were waiting for an opener, and that looked pretty delicious.
So these openers, how far in advance do you know? Like, the day before, do they say, okay, you can fish at 7 a.m.? Or how does that work? Yeah, the Fish and Game makes an announcement, as well as I know that they send text and emails, and they will give notice, seems about 24 hours in advance. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, see, I didn't know any of this. I would have just been out there fishing.
Well, you would have a lot of violations and tickets to pay. But it's very crucial to the season. And I now, of course, get those texts and email, but I didn't quite understand it the way I do today.
Definitely.
I knew that Fish and Game was involved. I knew that there was an opener, but it's not, just fish whenever you want by any means.
So say, for example, you put the net out at 4 a.m. When do you bring it back in?
This could vary. They'll watch to see how many fish are hitting. And again, our friends or not friends, the seals, if you notice that you've become a buffet line, you might bring them back in right away. If you're feeling like it's seal free and it's looking good, you could set it and forget it depending on how you're feeling. You could time it with your lunch and put it out and go in and just kind of keep an eye on it. And then, I see a few corks sunk, and that probably means there's fish. Bring it in. Yeah. I'm talking like I'm able to
you sound like a pro now.
Vessel now, but don't get it twisted. That's a very abbreviated version.
Okay.
Yeah. Another thing that I didn't quite grasp either until I was on the boat were districts and transfers. And so I mentioned we were in Ugashik, and that's kind of like putting your card down. Like, this is the district I'm going to fish in. And if you decided, I want to go out to Neck, you could put in for a transfer, but it takes 48 hours, if I'm remembering correctly, before you could transfer to that district.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of strategy that goes on with where you want to fish and when you want to fish there.
So if you were to go again, like next summer, would you do anything differently?
I would definitely, I think, you'd have to talk to Eric. But I think I could graduate out of free week and possibly dabble into peak season. I'm really curious on how that is. I know that I've seen and heard from other people what peak is like, and that's a whole different beast. The scenario that I painted for you, where there were no openers, it was free week, perfect weather.
Yeah,
I know that is not the case during the peak, and I would definitely like to try to experience that.
Yeah, that would probably be a totally different experience for sure.
So how has your perspective on the fishing industry changed since your experience?
It has changed. I've always have had great respect and appreciation for the hard physical work that I know that fishing is. And I also know that each of those boats is an independent business as well. So there's business decisions that are being made by the permit holder, whether or not to fish, how many crew, all the preparation it takes, boat maintenance, fuel, etc. But the firsthand experience also added that additional layer of strategy in addition to business decisions that go in every day. And regardless of how many years someone has been going up and fishing in Bristol Bay, deciding where to fish, when to even get there to start your season. There's just so many unknowns, and to see that firsthand, and not just on the boat I was. We did spend some time meeting with our members ahead of the season, and you could just hear the conversation. Like, when are you launching your boat? When's your crew getting up to there? Each day there's cost and risks to it. If you fly everyone up too soon and there's not an opener, or if there's closures, etc., or limits, there's fuel costs if you're transferring, all of that. So just really understanding those independent businesses and risks that each of those boats have has definitely added another dimension or perspective to the fishing industry.
Yeah, definitely. We all have heard like fishing is really, really hard work. Were you sore at all?
I was, and I'm pretty active, and some of my coaches here at home in Seattle knew I was commercial fishing, and so they upped all my weights, etc., to get me strong enough to fish. But I was still very sore, and even just being on the boat and getting sea legs or transferring from one boat to the other and all that is there. Yeah, there are definitely parts of me that were sore.
So can you describe this transferring? Because I know you said you were plucked from the skiff, and I want a better picture of that in my head.
I could do it better. I could send you the video after this.
Yes.
But yes, a commercial fishing boat is up to 32 feet long and quite high. I actually couldn't tell you how high, but there was quite the distance between the skiff that went from the fish camp leading me to the boat. And so I had to kind of step up and reach and get pulled up and climb up the railing. But that was it. There wasn't a ladder.
Oh.
In other words. And even better, I had to reverse that and to get off and back to Pilot Point. And the vessel that picked me up was not a skiff. It was a rubber ducky.
Oh, huh.
Which is a raft with a little motor. That was even more fun.
Wow. I can't wait to see the video. Well, thanks so much for sharing about all your experiences on the boat. As folks that haven't commercial fished before, like, it's really interesting to hear.
I've been dying to tell someone about it. No one's really asked.
What the heck? So switching gears a little bit to DC Salmon Week. I know you're involved in the DC Salmon Week that's taking place in Washington, D.C. next month in September. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we're super excited, and it's coming up very quickly. It's going to be our 5th Bristol Bay Salmon Week. Our first one was in 2019, but we did not have one because of the pandemic. So it will be our 5th one, and it's September 9th through 15th. And we're super excited. We are in the process of recruiting more restaurants, but our goal is to have, anywhere between 12 to 30 restaurants serving up Bristol Bay sockeye salmon during that week. It could be any menu item. And what's even greater is that you all do your salmon celebration, which is that Wednesday, the 11th. Mm-hmm. And, at that celebration, the Fish First Awards are announced. And it's really a 360-degree experience, or as much as we could bring, of Bristol Bay to the D.C. area.
That's great. Your guys' part is mainly, it's like a restaurant week.
Yeah, so we mainly focus on chef and restaurant outreach so that DC diners can enjoy our sockeye. But as of last year, and we're going to do it again this year, we have retail partners. So in DC area Whole Foods and Harris Teeter stores, there's going to be demos where people are cooking up sockeye salmon and sampling sockeye.
So cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And we're hoping that maybe a fisherman ambassador will be able to be standing at the demo in order to answer questions probably more accurately than the questions that I just answered about commercial fishing, but to speak to it. And we did that in Seattle last year, and it was really well received.
Awesome. So do they provide the salmon for these restaurants?
We can provide them. What we'd like to do do is connect them with a local supplier so that once they see the success of Salmon Week at their restaurant and the reception of it with their diners, they're able to maintain keeping it on the menu.
Oh, yeah.
If restaurant partners are having issues with supply or not able to find it, or whomever it is that is their distributor, it doesn't have sockeye, that's where the BBRSDA is there to help. And if someone's truly unfamiliar with it, and I always have to remind myself, they are so far east and away from Alaska and Seattle that some of them have never worked with frozen wild salmon. And if that's the case, we do have an opportunity for them to sample it and try it out beforehand before they commit to partnering with us.
Awesome.
That is so cool. So there are lots of events happening during DC Salmon Week. Are there any that you're particularly excited about?
I might have spoiled this one already by mentioning the retail store demos. The restaurants and chefs it's always exciting to see what they do. Makedo, which is an Asian fusion modern restaurant in DC, they always have really innovative dishes. I don't know what the chefs have coming up for us in 2024. And so that's why the retail stores is the one that I'm most excited about. Mostly because it's a quick call to action. It's getting in front of someone, they're trying the salmon right away, and then they're able to turn and see exactly what product it is that they're trying. And then if you add that layer of a fisherman being there and being able to tell them about fishing and about Bristol Bay, it's really that 360 experience that you could provide them right there in a Whole Foods or Harris Teeter.
That's amazing. I am so hungry right now. Like talking salmon, and I'm like, oh, that sounds so good right now.
So good.
Well, as someone involved in both the fishing industry and advocacy, how do you think events like DC Salmon Week can influence policymakers and consumers?
Yeah, I mean, I know the policymakers will make that trek all the way up to Alaska and back to DC, but consumers can't. Not all of them. Maybe some of them do go up to Alaska for a cruise or vacation. But as I mentioned, with the restaurants participating, with retail stores participating, and of course, the Salmon Celebration event that happens, that VIP decision makers, leaders, fishermen, etc., everyone are all there gathered and celebrating together. It's as close as we can get to bringing Bristol Bay to the DC area, and that whole week dedicated to it, including, visits and Hill meetings. It's impactful. There are so many issues I know that policymakers are dealing with, but for all of us to get together, dedicate an entire week, and it's not just BBNC and BBRSDA. We have our other coalition members participating as well. That's super impactful, and I think that makes a lasting impression for the policymakers and the restaurant week and participation. That's what folds in consumers as well.
Super exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be here before we know it.
I know. Oh my goodness.
Well, we mentioned a couple times BBRSDA's marketing and your communications. If any of our followers wanted to follow you, what kind of channels do you have?
We have Facebook and Instagram, and we're at Bristol Bay Sockeye Salmon on both of those. We do have TikTok as well, which is the same handle. If people are LinkedIn people, we're there. And we do have a YouTube where we host all our videos. Our consumer-facing website, not our org website, is bristolbaysockeye-salmon.org.
Awesome.
They can find a lot of yummy recipes on there. They can also, you guys have a link to find your fish and connect with a retailer. Is that right?
That is right.
Cool. So for example, if you live in Florida, you're able to go and see who sells Bristol Bay Sockeye Salmon in Florida?
That's correct. So you just punch in your zip code, and then it populates which retail stores you can go to. And it also includes direct marketers, which are typically fishermen who are direct marketing to consumers, either via shipping to them or buying club or have a presence at farmers markets.
Awesome. And what's your website one more time?
It's bristolbaysockeye.org.
Okay.
And our handle is Bristol Bay Sockeye Salmon.
Perfect.
Well, anything else, Lilani, that you want to share today?
No, I think that's it. Maybe if I get pulled into fishing peak season, we could have a 2.0 version of,
Oh my gosh.
of what else I have learned.
Lilani on the water.
Yeah, but other than that, no, I look forward to, you guys are great partners with the Bristol Bay Wild Market and other efforts, but really excited for next month.
Awesome. Yes, I will see you down there this year.
It will be fun. It's a big one, and I'm glad that you'll be there.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You were such a great storyteller. I'm sure our listeners are going to enjoy this episode. So thanks, Lilani.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We are one Bristol Bay, no matter the distance. From simple reminders of home to traditions and stories passed down through elders. From the salmon that nurture and sustain us to our Bristol Bay roots that ground us. We are connected through this remarkable place and our native way of life. Bristol Bay Native Corporation, always more than a corporation.